Welcome back to Washington Watch, friends. My name is Joseph Backholm, and I am sitting in for Tony today. The Hippocratic Oath requires doctors to promise that they will first do no harm. However, there is concern that across the country, doctors are giving drugs to children with gender dysphoria, even though the drugs have not been approved for that purpose. Are medical standards being lowered because the issue is so politically charged? Are children at risk because they are being given drugs for a purpose those drugs were never approved for? Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton is trying to find out, and he joins me now to discuss it. Attorney General Paxton, welcome back to Washington Watch.
Hey, Joseph, thanks for having me on.
Well, thank you for coming. This is an important story. First, just tell us the details of your investigation.
So it literally just started a few days ago. We have the authority under the Deceptive Trade Practices Act to send out what are called civil investigative demands, or like interrogatories or questions that we can ask companies that we think may be violating state law. And so that's what we've done, and we don't have any answers yet. We literally just started a few days ago, but those questions get sent out, and then we wait for answers back. We may send more questions, and then eventually either discover that there's a violation of the Deceptive Trade Practices Act, or there's no violation.
Tell us what prompted you to ask these questions.
I think we had begun getting just information from some of our consumers about these companies that we've asked the questions of. There's two companies in particular, and so we decided, when we get questions, then and they come from more than one source, well, that's usually when we start asking questions of the companies.
If it was true that these drugs were being given for a use they're not approved for, what's the implication of that?
So for us, I don't have any criminal authority. We can always refer that to a local district attorney, but we do have authority to fine them $10,000 per violation. And so, that can add up to significant costs. And part of that is to stop them from doing it, because there's going to be civil penalties for that. And they can amount to, millions and millions of dollars. So the civil part of this is not just designed to help bring in money to the state that may go to these types of problems, but it's also designed to actually stop the practice.
Is your investigation going to look at all into the potential impact on minors? And we are talking about minors in these cases, I understand, the impact that it would have on them of getting puberty blockers for purposes that they are not intended for.
Yeah, I mean, that's really the goal here, is to find out if these drugs are being used, these puberty blockers are being used on children, because if they are, they're being used on children and for a purpose that it's not intended for. That's not only a violation of the Deceptive Trade Practices, that's child abuse and could potentially lead to other concerns for those companies.
I know the nature of the underlying issue here makes this a very politically charged one and not just a medical one, but are you aware of other situations in which drugs have been frequently prescribed by doctors for purposes they weren't specifically approved for?
So we haven't been given information on any specific doctors in Texas. If we were, that would be another cause for concern, and we would go down the path of investigating those doctors as well. So the overall idea of prescribing drugs that are not approved for these purposes would be a problem in my state.
Well, we hope so. We all think it would be a problem. But given the nature of this issue, in so many ways, people seem to behave differently when we're dealing with these political issues than we would in a similar situation that wasn't as politically charged. Now, would you say your goal with this investigation is to see that puberty blockers are not used on minors, or is it to merely make sure that if they are being used, they are being used for the purpose they are approved for?
Well, look, so there are purposes that they are approved for. It's just in this case, we're looking at the unapproved purposes. I know that they can treat children for this precocious puberty, but beyond that, to affect these minor children forever as to the potential their sex choice is not what they're supposed to be used for, and that, in our opinion, before they are 21, is child abuse.
Are there any other states that you know of that are conducting a similar investigation?
I am not aware of any other states. No one's called me and let me know that other state attorney generals are looking at this. I don't know if anybody's ever looked at this. This may be a first in our country. So I'm not aware of any other state that's doing what we're doing right now.
Well, in many ways, we do depend on Texas. We look to you to lead and do things for the first time, and we are thankful that you're doing that. Attorney General Paxton, very quickly, how long do you expect this investigation to take, and when will we have some kind of results?
There's usually a period of time, 30, 60, 90 days, depending on the companies and how many questions we're asking for them to answer questions, and then that may lead to other questions. The investigation is fact-dependent and depends on what we find out at the beginning of our investigation as to how long it's going to take. But we're going to try to move it along. Believe me, we want to know the answer, and we want to make sure these kids are protected.
Attorney General Ken Paxton from the great state of Texas, thank you for your leadership on this and for your time today. Appreciate it very much.
Thank you. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas to you.